think coal companies do owe it to the communities to restore the land as best as possibly can be done.
What we don't know is what the companies are actually doing at this moment. Almost impossible to legally see from the ground, so if we can see it from satellite images, we can get some idea of what's actually happening on the ground. We've been mining coal in this region for well over 100 years. So it's not just the coal mining that's problematic, it is the method and the impacts that method has. Mountaintop removal coal mining is used pretty much exclusively in central Appalachia. The process involves using explosives and machinery to remove the tops of mountains to expose the coal seams below. Mountaintop removal tends to create a lot of waste material. There's a lot of excess rock, excess dirt, and then the company needs to do something with that material. So a lot of the time that material is used to regrade and reclaim the mine, but there's usually excess, so a lot of the times it's pushed over into the valley below and buries a lot of headwater streams and damages downstream water quality. So basically we come out here and try to get as close to their monitoring sites as we legally can, and then we duplicate the tests to see if their results are accurate, to see if we find other problems for things that they may not be required to monitor for. There's a lot of emerging science about the damage that may cause to humans. It can be expensive for coal companies to fix those problems, and if they can hide the fact that they're avoiding some of those requirements, then they don't get caught. Appalachian Voices works with community members to find those additional problems that may be missed or may be covered up by the company. In the early days of Appalachian Voices, one of the things we helped bring to the toolbox was doing flyovers. So literally getting in small airplanes and taking cameras and taking photos and video of the mines as we flew over them. But they're hard to do, they're expensive, and they're time consuming. So the next thing we did was figure out how to start looking at the mines using satellite images from Google Earth.
SkyTruth is an environmental nonprofit, and we focus on using satellite imagery and digital technology to raise awareness about the impact that human activity has on the environment.
And so we're looking at how each color represents a different year of active mining, so then we transition across the landscape.
SkyTruth's first forays into mapping surface mining in Appalachia date back to 2009 when we were approached by Appalachian Voices. We worked with them to put together the first map of where these mines were located. Our original work was limited by the fact that we had to sift through imagery and find suitable scenes. And what we ended up doing was selecting one usable scene for each year that we were trying to classify mining. Earth engine and satellite imagery is really allowing researchers to conduct studies that were previously impossible. Now, once we know where mining activity is taking place, we can use that information to track that site through time.
Using Google Earth, we came up with a figure of about 500 mountains being destroyed by mountaintop removal mining, and at the same time found that 1.5 million acres have been surface mined in central Appalachia since the 70s. Another thing we were able to show is that over 2,000 miles of streams have been buried through surface mining in central Appalachia. We do a lot of water testing because that water, it has to leave the mine eventually. Water flows downhill, so figuring out where those paths would be and where they would intersect like a public road or a public waterway, Google Earth is really helpful for us in doing that. We have caught companies in the past that fabricate their data. In 2010, Appalachian Voices discovered that several large mountaintop removal companies in Kentucky were falsifying their compliance records for the Clean Water Act. Basically, they were fabricating the data for their wastewater. We were able to file several lawsuits that basically forced those companies to clean up their act. We helped to create additional tools to better safeguard against falsification of water monitoring data.
Mining continues, but our historic work has illustrated that good access to data can help make environmental policy changes which may limit the extent of mining. So we're using this data to track the progress of reclamation in formerly mined sites. Reclamation can take a variety of forms, but essentially what a lot of it is removing of haul roads, regrading landscapes, and then revegetating the landscape.
A lot of cases, it's returned to forest or grazing land for cattle, and it can go all the way up to shopping centers or schools and hospitals or kind of industrial use.
Mine reclamation for a surface mine in this area usually consists of basically trying to put the mountain back, replanting trees, and making sure that water leaving the mine is clean and safe to enter into streams below. That runoff from a mine, it will eventually reach some local river that gets used by local people. So I drive around and I look for public roads that go below mines and up valleys that receive the wastewater runoff. I use the Google Earth app on my phone a lot when I am trying to ground truth a mine. Not only can I figure out where I'm going, but I can do measurements on the fly, so we could get a sense of how big this slurry pond we were driving past is. Coal companies are hiding what they're doing. It was common practice, especially at the height of surface mining, to leave a strip of trees between the surface mine and the road so that people on the public road couldn't see the mine.
This is the title track off of my new album. This is called When the Light Shines Again. It was in 95, the coal mine shut down and began the downfall of our little hometown. Well, the miners walked out, busted and broke, while the jobs headed west to Colorado. My papa was an underground coal miner for over 30 years. It offered him a way to make a living, and without that, my family wouldn't be here in this town. So he spoke about the environmental effects, how even at times when he was unemployed, he never believed in going to work for a strip mining or a mountaintop removal company because he didn't believe that the amount of coal or the amount of money that might be made was worth the environmental damage that could come from that type of mining. Mugs and belt buckles don't mean much these days. My papaw, unfortunately, like so many coal miners in the region, has suffered some negative health effects from working in the mining industry, and today he suffers from black lung disease. I don't think he begrudges working in the mines, though. He enjoyed it. You know, we want the same things as everybody else in any community wants. We just want a safe, healthy place to live where people can work and raise families and go to school and live a successful life. Turn down your lamps, it looks like the end. I really want to put together this album as a way to kind of cut through all the noise and sound bites that are being created about the region and about coal mining to say, here is a real explanation and a real look at what it's like to live in a coal mining region in Southwest Virginia.
So we're looking at whether there's tree survival, whether the trees look healthy. We're looking at what type of trees there are. Sometimes you can tell that by drone, like in this case, but a lot of times we would need to request an inspection and be able to go on site.
You know, I think one of the utilities of this tool and this data set that we're creating is it will allow researchers to examine how effective different reclamation efforts are. And so we can highlight operators who are doing things the right way, or drawing attention to those areas where the company's failed its reclamation effort. It hasn't achieved the benchmarks that it should be reaching or that it says it has reached. So we're not just using it to ID where mines are, we're also looking at how forests recover on these sites. And that's all done via Earth Engine.
Roughly a decade ago, we did use Google Earth to look at the fate of reclaimed mines. We called it reclamation fail.
Reclamation fail is a pithy term we came up for when the mining company loses incentive to follow through with its reclamation plan. It is cheaper for the mining company to pay the fine than to do the reclamation. That's kind of the worst example of reclamation fail.
We are at the top of Black Mountain, which is right on the Virginia and Kentucky line. Black Mountain is the highest point in Kentucky. We are looking at the Looney Ridge surface mine that's on the Virginia side. So we're looking at a big mine that needs a lot of reclamation. This mine has essentially been idled for about 7 years, maybe a little bit longer even. So the concern about this particular mine is that it has been idled so long that if the company were to go bankrupt, reclamation becomes less certain.
And it will leave the mine in a state of being unreclaimed, and it'll really be the kind of the ward of the state or the federal government to clean it up, and that's kind of the worst case scenario.
These communities are historically underserved. Operators are legally required to restore the landscape to some sort of higher use. And if there's no real way to measure how effective reclamation efforts are, we might be continuing to neglect these communities.
This region absolutely deserves proper reclamation because these communities have worked in these mines for generations, and they have produced the coal that has provided a huge percentage of the energy that this country has been built upon.
I, like many people in our community, believe that coal companies should repair the land because we've given them a lot, and I think the least that any company can do is help us repair the damage that's been done so that as we move forward in the region, whether we continue mining coal or not, we will have a healthy environment to exist in.